I finally made my first frame in Warframe, and the experience was a lot more fun than I had imagined. A little backstory before we continue though. Hi, I'm Oryxide, and if you couldn't tell, I play a lot of Destiny. But with Destiny now being in end of service, I decided to try and branch out and try some new games. And Warframe seemed like the perfect game. I actually started Warframe earlier this year, which is when I began to make my first frame, which was Koumei. Now Koumei caught my eye when I was progressing through the Earth missions. I had just completed Sayer's visions and received one of the blueprints. Luckily for me, the materials needed were reasonably accessible, and it helped that I actually really liked the mission. Now, it didn't take me long at all to obtain the blueprints. Maybe I'm lucky or they have a high drop rate, I'm not sure. I do find it odd that you can get duplicate blueprints. I don't know if you can craft multiple of the same frames or frame parts, but if you can, is there a reason to? If you know, then please let me know. Eventually, I had crafted 3 of the 4 parts needed to begin crafting Koumei. All I needed now was the Koumei neuroptics. At this point, which again was earlier this year, I put Warframe on the back burner. In fact, I actually uninstalled and my attention returned to Destiny, but we know how that turned out, so here we are back on Warframe. My attention would again turn to Koumei and crafting the Koumei neuroptics. There was one issue though: iridite, one of the last materials needed for crafting the remaining part. I had 3 of the 4 materials I needed and part of the iridite. All I needed was the remaining iridite and I could begin crafting Koumei. This is where the grind truly began. Iridite can only be found in the plains of Eidolon, which is an open area on Earth akin to a patrol zone for the Destiny players watching. So I made my way there and began doing bounties which gave iridite as a possible common reward while also mining every single ore that I could find. Turns out though, the game really did not want to give me iridite at all. I did at least 10 bounties and didn't get any. And even though I had mined a lot of ore, none of the ores were iridite. I was lost and a little annoyed. So I did what everyone does when they have an issue. I turned to Reddit. An old post had mentioned that this was a good spot to farm for the iridite. So I made my way there and began the grind once more. The thing is though, I was still looking for iridite in walls and rocks. What I didn't realize though was that this is iridite. These little deposits. And little they are because they only give 1 iridite. Now, is that correct? Or is there a tool that gives more maybe? If you can let me know, let me know. The other annoying thing about these iridite deposits is that they don't appear on your radar, so I simply had to keep my eyes peeled. I don't know if maybe I'm just blind or if there's not a lot of deposits, but it took me forever to get the iridite that I needed. It took me a while, but we got there eventually and I could begin crafting the Koumei neuroptics. I decided to pay platinum to skip the timer just so that I could start crafting the Koumei frame. And, well, here we are now. Koumei is ready to claim. So I claimed Koumei, put it on, and decided to continue with the story to give it a go. And I instantly fell in love. You see, Koumei's whole gimmick is to manipulate fate, or take a chance at fate. At least that's how I'm deciding to perceive it as. Every time you activate an ability, a set of 5 6-sided dice is rolled and the total combined number determines the strength of the ability. If you get 3 6s in a row when activating an ability, then a special bonus effect unique to that ability is activated as well. This isn't a how it works video, but let me take a second to explain the abilities as they're just so perfect to me. Kubihimo is the first ability and it creates a net of threads in the area which applies a random elemental status effect when touched by an enemy. Omikuji is my personal favorite ability though. Activating it gives you a challenge to complete, and completing the challenge will give you a random decree, which is basically a buff or gameplay modifier. The challenges are basically defeat a certain number of enemies in a certain way, such as when sliding or when you're within 10 meters. Then you've got Omamori, which is when you become surrounded by charms, and while you have a charm, there's a chance for an attack to heal you instead of damaging you, which will then consume a charm. Finally, there's Bonraku, which admittedly I've yet to use, but it damages and suspends targets and applies random status effects. Koumei doesn't seem too crazy, or maybe it is and I just don't know, but I'm very happy that Koumei is my first ever crafted frame in Warframe. As always, thank you for watching, have a great day.